Okay, 1 second. Is this on Zoom also? No, just on the YouTube link. Make it easier. It was already automatically uploaded instead of having to manually do it afterwards. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure this is working. Yes, there you go. Okay. Guys ready? It's showtime. Why is it so crooked? Why is it so crooked? Okay. So we are ready. If you guys are ready. Yeah. And Marsha's here. And Sarah's here. Okay, come sit down. Make yourselves comfortable. So, you ready? Take a drink. And those are made by Mushka, the cupcakes. The looks are not deceiving, by the way. And the looks are not deceiving. They are. They're banana, I think. They're healthy. They're good. They're delicious. Okay. So, ready? Ready to start? Okay. So, we're going to be going through... here, take a book, yeah. For the next many, many weeks, we're going to be going through all of the laws of kosher. Want a book, Sarah? You listen? We'll talk after. We'll figure it out. Okay, so normally I would start. Randy has a book. Okay. Normally, if I was giving a lecture, I would start with a joke. That's how I would start if I was giving a lecture. But tonight is not going to be a lecture. This whole entire series is not lecture series. This entire series is learning how to live in a way that Judaism is actual, practical, which is the most important kind of learning we can do. So it's not going to be a frontal learning experience. It's going to be an interactive learning experience where we actually engage, we talk, we can discuss, we can take questions, and most importantly, we can brainstorm ways to implement. So because this is meant to be practical, and it's the most important also, so instead of just giving a theoretical funny joke, I want to tell you a true story instead to start. Okay? It's a story about a woman who grew up not religious, and at some point in her life, many, many details, but it's not relevant for right now, this woman decided she wants to start being more kosher. And being more kosher, although it sounded like a beautiful thing to do, was impossible at where she was holding at that point in her life to do, because to kosher your kitchen, to stop eating out, to stop going out with your friends. None of her friends were religious. Her environment is not a religious environment, to put it nicely. And to start keeping kosher is very, very difficult. But on the other hand, she wanted to do something to grow into Judaism. So she decided to start keeping kosher one day a week. And her name is Marsha Richmond, and she's sitting right here, right in front of me. And you all know the story. Kevin's know the story. And Marsha decided that from now on Monday, she'll keep kosher. Even though on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Shabbat and Sunday, she'll eat whatever and go wherever and hang out with whoever. But on Monday, she's going to keep kosher. And to make a long story short, today, Marsha's kitchen is as kosher as any kitchen could possibly be. It's kosher as my kitchen. It's a beautiful kitchen. It's a kosher kitchen. Marsha's kosher every day, 24/7. And she's Shomer Shabbos, and she's wearing a sheitel and many more beautiful things too. She's not just kosher. But it started by keeping kosher one day a week. And it
started because we were walking to your house, I think on a holiday, and I wanted something. I don't remember what I wanted. And you said, well, what are you going to do for God?
Mm-hmm. So Marsha, I do remember. Marsha reminded me, so I'll just say Marsha, yeah, there was a reason why Marsha felt she needed to do something to grow in her Judaism. Correct?
But I don't remember what I wanted. See,
I want to say one more story. So then, I just discovered this a few nights ago, because Chana and I were talking about this, and you told Chana 2 nights ago, 2 days ago, whatever, you met with her. So Marsha told my wife 2 days ago a part of the story that we never knew until 2 days ago, which is, so Marsha decided, maybe Marsha, I'll say it, if I'm saying it wrong, you can correct me. So Marsha was keeping kosher one day a week. And then came the holidays. And during the holidays,
No, I was kosher 3 days.
oh, you already, okay. I only heard the second hand. You said the story. I'll repeat it afterwards for the YouTube people that are watching, because I heard this from Khan, who heard it from you. So you can say it.
Okay, so I started keeping kosher on Mondays.
Yeah.
Then I started keeping kosher on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
And it's because I would come to their house to eat, so it was really easy. And then I was keeping kosher Monday, Friday, and Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then it was the holidays, and I bought all this kosher meat and blah, 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 blah. So I had so much left over and frozen and everything that I was like kosher for like 2 months, just because I could. And we were having company coming on Saturday, Shabbat, and we were making a barbecue. So we were going to Penn Dutch, which hasn't even been in business for so long. And we went to, and I was telling Hannah, yeah, I've been kosher for like 2 months, but I'm gonna break my streak Saturday because we're going to Penn Dutch because we're having company and we're getting a tenderloin and making fried and whatever, I just don't have a steak. But I should back up. Like a month or two before that, I was at your house, and for Hannah thinks it might have been a friend of hers that came to visit you and bought you steaks. And I was at your house when Hannah had one extra steak and froze it and put it in the freezer. So when I told her this, that I was going to be breaking my streak, she said, wait, don't you remember? I had that steak in my freezer. Remember we put it in my freezer? I'll give you that steak and you can eat it Saturday. And it was from then on that I became kosher.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so let me get the punchline here. The punchline is, it's not seeing me at all. There you go. The punchline of the story is that Marsha decided to keep kosher one day a week. And then from that one day of the week, it grew and grew and grew until eventually she was fully kosher. But the next step of the story, a major step, when she went fully kosher, was when my wife said, let me give you one kosher slab of meat, one kosher steak. Now, my wife did not think for a second that by giving you that slab of meat, that she was going to have such a pivotal impact on your life, that that'll be the last time that you formally ever ate non-kosher, you started keeping kosher. She didn't think that. But in her mind, which is the way a Jew should think, every time you do the right thing has infinite value in and of itself. And therefore, if there's just one more time that she'll cook kosher meat instead of non-kosher meat, then it's worth it for me to open my freezer and take out the slab of kosher meat, because that one time will have the impact, will have what needs to be done. And that's very, very powerful. And the reason why I'm starting this class, not with a joke, but by sharing this story, is because even though we're going to learn a lot of the laws of keeping kosher, and God willing, we're going to go into great depth, and we're going to go through a lot of details, and there's a lot of conditions and a lot of regulations and a lot of things that we don't do, even maybe you could do, and I'm more strict and I don't do them, etc. But keeping kosher is not an all or nothing proposition. It's a huge rainbow of shades, many, many, many shades in keeping kosher, many different dimensions. And you can always grow in that. And at whatever point you are in your particular and personal kosher observance, it's not like you need to do everything we're going to say in every class. Obviously, it's amazing if you could, but that's not the objective. Not everything I say is because I think you need to do everything I say. You have to know everything. You have to know what's right and wrong, and you have to understand many times I'll leave things a little bit open and vague because there's more than one opinion. So there are rabbis that will allow something, and then there are other rabbis that don't rely on that leniency. But there's ground to, if at your level you're ready to rely on this leniency, then that's fine. It's a journey. It's a journey. So the first step to know as we start this journey is that journeys happen step by step. Journeys are not, in one jump and all of a sudden you're there. That's only in your imagination. And you dream in one step, you're somewhere else. In the real world, in real life, in a healthy way, you take steps. And as long as you keep on walking and you keep on moving and you keep on having a focus on growing, that's how the journey goes. Okay. So, in fact, the word kosher, by the way, How do you spell the word kosher in Hebrew? Anyone knows? Kaf, Shin Reish, which stand for 3 Hebrew words. Kimotze Shalal Rav, like someone who finds a great treasure. But finding a great treasure goes step by step. You find a great treasure is not like suddenly, all of a sudden. Keeping kosher is a tremendous treasure. But, each piece of, how do you get a treasure? 1 coin, 2, how do you become rich? Right? You don't one day become, some people win the lottery, but most people, you earn your first dollar, then your second dollar, and your third dollar. And with time, as you make more money, it gets easier to make money. With time, as you keep kosher, it becomes easier to keep kosher too, by the way. So it's always hardest in the beginning. It's the most unnatural in the beginning. And the longer you do it, and the more you do, the easier it will become. And that's as far as introduction number 1. So l'chaim Marsha, l'chaim to all of you, that every one of you in this room, every one of you are growing in your own levels, right? Keeping kosher and growing in general. So l'chaim. Now, introduction number 2. In this book, there's a very nice introduction that goes through different, which we're not going to go through in depth right now, describing different reasons why the different rabbis give, different perspectives for why a person should keep kosher. Logical reasons, illogical reasons. Is keeping kosher a chok, which is a completely super rational law that has no explanation whatsoever? Is kosher, does it have explanations? Is it good for our soul? Some of the rabbis explain that when you eat animals like a pig that wallow in the dirt and eat all kinds of disgusting germs, a chazerai, and that impacts you when you eat animals that are predator animals, you eat birds that are birds of prey, so then your own inner psyche becomes like what you eat, and you also become a more aggressive person. And they're all true, and you can read through later, you can read through the introduction. I want to make 1 2-minute point. It's perhaps the last point too, but to me, I think it's the most important point to bring out, which is, if you look on, I don't know if there's page numbers here. Whatever, that doesn't, which it's we don't have to read inside. That basically, when you eat, it's the last, it's not the last text. It's on text number 2 from the Talmud in Yuma. The Talmud in Yuma on page 39 says that it was taught in the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael in XXV. It's page XXV. I guess that's 25. XXV is 25, right? Yes. XXV. XXV. Yeah, so 25, page 25. It was taught in the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael. By the way, I just realized the book is now 459 pages or 500, whatever. It's actually plus introduction. Okay. It was taught in the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael that sin causes a blockage in one's heart. As it says, neither shall you make yourselves unclean with them, that you should be defiled. V'nitmeisem. The Hebrew word for defiled is v'nitmeisem. But the rabbis changed the reading of the word, not to read it v'nitmeisem, you will become defiled, but rather v'nitamtem, you will become stuffed up. You become spiritually blocked. And there's a key idea about kashrus, about keeping kosher, that I want to bring out before we start, which is that when you eat non-kosher food, it has a spiritual impact on your soul. When you work hard to eat kosher food and more kosher food, it has a spiritually beneficial, elevating impact on your soul. Just like eating healthy food versus eating, I don't know, sugar. You eat cheesecake, you eat ice cream, you eat something, and you can you eat pizza. For me, if I eat pizza, an hour later, I'll be like, I feel like a truck ran me over and I'm tired. I feel because the heavy cheese and the dough and everything. So I'm not, lactose intolerant. I won't get sick, but I'm like, I feel it. I feel that it's heavy. So it has an impact. The physical food has an impact on your mental state, on your physical state. And if you eat something healthy, it gives you energy. And the exact same thing is true spiritually. Food has a direct impact on our spiritual sensitivity and our spiritual state of awareness and our spiritual ability to understand ideas of Torah, to understand, to feel God. Not that you can't. It's not like you can't be productive after you ate pizza. It's not like you can't pray and do a mitzvah if you ate non-kosher. And if you eat kosher, guarantee that you can be holy. It's not like so simple. But the food absolutely plays a role. It plays a role in determining the kind of person we are in our ability to understand the ideas of Torah and to internalize and to gain wisdom and all that. And so, although, as I just said a second ago, the journey of kosher begins with keeping it 1 day a week or with taking on one aspect, and then we're going to go through each chapter, be specific ideas you can take. Like today, we'll talk about all the different signs of kosher animals. You can choose just regarding fish to be more strict, or more just regarding meat. You can just choose one. You don't have to choose everything, or you can be more careful on all of them. But this is as long as you recognize, on one hand, step by step, but on the other hand, you recognize the value of making it there and the value of working on, just like being healthy. It's not like you can't eat, and you have to either be a health fanatic eating, spinach and I don't know, kale, or nothing. Just go splurge and eat ice cream every day. There's a big gap in between, right? You can eat healthy and still, have one of the mushkas cupcakes afterwards. It's not going to kill you to have a cupcake. You have to it's a journey. Okay. Anyway, I think those two introductions are very important. We already took much longer than I thought it would take. So let's go to page number 2, which is chapter 1, the kosher code. We're going today to learn about simanim. So if you see on page 2, you have actually the word simanim there. And again, this is meant to be a more intellectual and educational class. So if you want to know the lingo and know how to speak a little bit more rabbinic sounding and know certain words, what they mean. So every week we're going to learn a few words that are part of the halachic jargon and the lingo of someone that, if you want to ask a question, you want to ask, words to know. So in Torah, we have the simanim, the signs of a kosher animal. And the Torah gives us a detailed list of which animals are kosher species, non-kosher species. You have it twice in the Torah, in the book of Vayikra, and you have it in the book of Dvarim in Parshas Achrei Mos and the Parsha of Re'eh, if I'm not mistaken. And when Hashem told Moshe on Mount Sinai all the different signs of kosher animals, non-kosher animals, Hashem actually showed the Jewish people all the animals. And he showed them, this is, we'll talk about Shechit next week, but this is a kosher animal. This is Jews living in the desert. They left Egypt and living in the desert. How many of the animals that exist in the world lived in the Sinai desert? Not a lot. I'm saying you don't have a lot of different animals living in the desert. And God made sure it was so important that the people should understand and to recognize the different signs that distinguish a kosher animal from a non-kosher animal, that God made multiple miracles, that all of these animals will be present for Moshe to physically show the Jewish people what a kosher animal looks like and what a non-kosher animal looks like. And I was thinking of bringing a kosher fish and going to BJ's and just buy a whole white fish just to show you fins and scales. But I think everyone knows what fins and scales look like. So, okay. Now, if you look on page 4, just to give you some more introduction over here, I mean, you can read also the book yourself, but every chapter is going to have the biblical sources or the main texts and then the halachas. So because there's a lot of text in chapter 1 and we're behind, I'm not going to read the key texts over here. Or maybe we should just read the key text. I won't read the... Should we read it? What do you say? What do you guys want to do? Should we read it or you'll read it afterwards? We'll do homework. You're going to read it. In general, each week, if you read ahead, it'd be a good thing to have a little bit, be more prepared to challenge me and to ask me good questions. Okay. But I have a lot I want to talk about, so maybe we're going to leave it. So basically, you have 4 categories of animals. We have mammals, we have birds, we have fish, and we have insects. Insects, yummy. I know. Very, very yummy. So the Torah tells us regarding a kosher animal, I'm sure every one of you already know, what are the signs of a kosher animal? Chews its cud, has the hooves. So I'm not going to read it inside. This is the fish, fins and scales, and then we'll get to the kosher birds soon. So go to page 6. Here's the text. The Torah provides 2 critical requirements for a land animal to be kosher. First, you have it, page 6? First, it must have split hooves, meaning the hoof must be fully divided down to the ground, appearing as 2 distinct halves. The second requirement, so if you look at the picture, you'll see a camel, by the way, that has split hooves. But the camel's hooves are not completely split. They're only a partial split, and therefore the camel is not considered a kosher animal. What? Yeah, but the donkey's not split at all. I wanted to point out that the camel has somewhat split hooves, but not fully split hooves, and that's why it's not... what? Well, a pig has split hoof, but doesn't chew its cud. Yeah, but within split hooves, it has to be a completely split hoof. And a camel is an example of a partially split hoof that's not enough. Second requirement is that the animal chew its cud, which is a biological process known as rumination. Animals that do this are called ruminants. All ruminants are herbivores, which means they only eat grass. If you think that eating grass all day will make you skinny, look at cows. All they do is eat lettuce and salad. And you never seen any comics of that? Yeah. They only eat salad, and they're quite big. Yeah, they don't fit into any dresses. So these herbivores rely on the diet of grass and other plant-based foods. However, these animals lack the enzymes to break down the cellulose in plant cell walls. To overcome this, ruminants have a unique 4-chambered stomach that enables them to digest plant material. When they first eat the grass, minimal chewing takes place. In the first 2 stomach chambers, which is the rumen and the reticulum, bacteria and other microorganisms begin to break down the plant cellulose. The partially digested plant matter, which is the cud, is then regurgitated to the animal's mouth for a slower and more thorough chewing. It's delicious. I know. You already ate dinner, right? With the food now finally divided, it enters the 3rd and 4th chambers, known as the omasum and the abomasum. The animal's natural stomach enzymes complete the digestive process. Now, by the way, last year I went to vacation with my kids. We stayed on the farm for a few nights. Me and the John, we rented like Airbnb. And you watch the animal. We had a chance to really watch them. You feed them, and they're just chewing and chewing. Even they're not eating. You're not feeding them anything. They're just chewing. You literally can see how the food comes up, and they have food in their mouths, and they're chewing, even though they weren't just taking food off the ground. So that's exactly how it works. Kosher animals include cows, goats, sheep, deer, elk, bison, and giraffes. Although you cannot today buy kosher giraffe meat, and that's because it's very hard to know how to slaughter them. And that will be next week's. We'll talk about shechita and the laws of even a kosher animal, the kosher simanim, the kosher signs, needs to also be slaughtered and salted and all that. We'll talk about that next week, God willing. But those are the kosher animals. And chapter 2, I just jumped ahead. Okay, fine. Non-kosher species include pigs, camels, horses, donkeys, and rabbits. All reptiles are also non-kosher. Okay. Now, I think that this is the most simple of the 4 that we're going to talk about today. There isn't really any more to add. If it chooses cut and has but holds the kosher animals, then there's not really much debate about that. Let's go to fish. Fish is more interesting. The birds would be the most interesting, but let's talk about fish. What makes a kosher fish? Torah specifies that a fish is kosher if it has both fins and scales. Examples of kosher fish include pike, whitefish, flounder, halibut, salmon, tuna, sea bass, trout, tilapia, Nile perch, and carp. On the other hand, aquatic creatures lacking fins or scales are considered non-kosher. These include sharks, whales, dolphins, catfish, squid, and shellfish, such as clams, oysters, lobsters, and crabs. Okay, so it has to have fins and scales. Any kind of these shellfish are not going to be kosher. Now, the Talmud teaches that any fish with scales will also have fins. Therefore, if a piece of fish is found with scales, one can safely assume it also had fins, making it kosher. And in chapter 24, we're going to talk about how to apply this when you're going to the store to buy. I didn't know it was here in chapter 24. Okay, fine. Actually prepared on this. Okay. For a fish, and by the way, there's a story, I think it's in the Talmud, that there was a fish. Basically, the rule is that any fish that has scales must have had fins. There was once a fish they found that seemingly, they said it was kosher, didn't have fins. So they took the rabbi to the ship, remember the exact details, and there was like a large net that they threw the net into to the water, and the net was full and pulled the net up. So he threw like a blanket or something into the net. His jacket he threw into the net. And then when they were pulling up the net, all the fish started, jumping and jumping. And when they came out of the water, they no longer had the fins. So you see, he took his jacket that he had thrown into the net, and on the jacket were all the fins that the animals had shed when they were being pulled out of the water. The fish naturally, I guess when distress, they shed their fins. The jacket that he thrown in had caught those fins, and that proved that what the Talmud says is true. That if any fish that has scales, we know it has fins. And therefore, today, if you're looking at a fish to know if it's kosher or not, you don't need to look for fins and scales. You just need to see scales. If you see the skin of the animal has scales, you're good. Got it? Okay. For a fish to be kosher, its scales must be removable without tearing the skin. Some fish, like sturgeon, have scales that can only be removed by tearing the skin, making them non-kosher. Swordfish are considered non-kosher for the same reason, because the scales that they have are not separate from their skin. It's like a part of their flesh, and they don't separate. Yes.
Sturgeon is not kosher. That's like a big fish that people serve when breakfast. Like an expensive.
So if you read the background, yes, sturgeon is a very interesting question. And sturgeon is one of the fish that has been a matter of debate. Because, well, you've never eaten it? You've never eaten lox?
Never. It's too ugly.
Really? Really? Wow. She sponsors it. Never? Okay. Later we'll convince Marsha to try some lox. Are you Jewish? Wow. Okay, if you never ate lox, I can't argue with that. So it used to be, back in the good old days, that people actually consider sturgeon to be kosher. However, over the course of years, they become more and more accepted that they're not considered kosher. If you look at the next page, that juvenile swordfish have some form of scale, but they lose them as they mature.
Yeah, we had an argument about this we were talking about this, and we learned that swordfish when they're younger.
Yeah, swordfish, when they're younger, and then it falls off by itself long before they're grown up. So the question is, does that mean that they're in the category of kosher fish or not? And that's why in early years, they used to allow people to eat swordfish. And the same thing with sturgeons that, what's that? Let me go. I skipped. Swordfish only has scales when it's a baby. When it gets older, they don't have scales anymore. Therefore, many rabbis say not to eat it. And sturgeon, the scales are like bones almost, like in the flesh. You can't detach them. They're like part of the flesh of the fish. And the rabbis rule clearly there has to be something which is tearable, that you can take it off, that it's separate from the actual flesh of the fish. Caviar is not kosher. Caviar, if I'm not mistaken, real caviar comes from sturgeon. Or maybe something else, yeah. Real caviar is not kosher. So if you've gotten caviar today, most likely it's it's an imitation of some other fish. Like today you can buy kosher crab. Right? It's not really crab. Well, kosher crab? Sturgeon, caviar. Caviar is not that good. Okay. Russians are very into caviar, no? Oh, you have Russian caviar, okay. And the Russians talk about the caviar. It is kosher caviar, if I'm not mistaken, but it's like go buying kosher crab. Today you can buy kosher cheeseburgers and kosher everything. Yeah, they have pork. I mean, it was a whole debate. So they had a I think it was chips or something, was bacon flavor with an OU on it. And there's a whole discussion. Obviously, there's no bacon flavor, and the bacon flavor, it's all artificial. It's all fake. There's no real bacon in the bacon flavor. But it looks very off to see an OU symbol on the same bag of chips that says the word bacon on it, So the whole discussion is that's Marasai, not what? Right. So today, my wife, every Friday night at my Shabbos table, we have crab on the Shabbos table. I know that sounds great, right? My wife makes the sushi. That's nothing like real crab. The experts here say that it's not even a good imitation. Okay. Better? To me, I wouldn't know the difference. Yeah. So we have fake crab. My wife makes sushi salad, and so she makes it's a good salad. Yeah, even though the crab is not as good as real crab, I hear you. I will tell you as a side note that I did a food allergy testing a few years back for myself, and there's one food that had like a red alert that if I ate it, I would get like an automatic reaction. Shellfish.
Same thing with Corinne. She's
Yeah, correct.
And
Shellfish.
highly
Highly allergic. I'm like, there's the only food that's like a dangerous level that I would get like a immediate reaction. I might need to go to the hospital. Like if I ate a lot of it, I never knew that. I never had shellfish in my life. So Baruch Hashem, Jewish doctor told me, see, God was nice to you. He gave you an allergy to the one food you're never going to eat. Like, thank God. Okay. So anyway, so today sturgeon by many rabbis would consider it not kosher. But again, here's like an area where you say I'm going to eat. I'm not going to eat any shellfish, but sturgeon. I still want my caviar. Okay, let's just say if you're into Russian caviar, or you were in your previous lifetime. Not that good. Okay. So that's regarding sturgeon and regarding swordfish. Now, let's get to birds. By the way, gefilte fish, have fins and scales.
It's not really
I was joking. Very good. I had Faith was giving me a look for a second. She was totally confused. Gefilte fish does not have fins and scales, but it's still considered kosher. And let's do it to rabbinic leniency regarding
Is
those.
that like tilapia where it's like parts of fish?
Gefilte fish is a combination. The gefilte fish is a hot dog of fish. That's an excellent expression. I've never heard that. Gefilte, but it tastes better than hot dogs, in my opinion. But gefilte fish is a hot dog of fish. Interesting.
My mother-in-law used to make the fish like it's a half, like this, and then she put maybe the tits out.
Yeah, the gefilte fish is ground. What's the reason, by the way? Sorry, look, it's an interactive class, and we're going to go much in the levels because I'm going to let you guys take me everywhere. But why do we eat gefilte fish on Friday night? What's the reason? Yeah. Yeah, you can't separate the bones. Good old-fashioned fish today, you get everything filleted and all that, but then you got whatever fish you got, and small little fish, a lot of bones. To separate the bones from the meat of the fish on Shabbos is a problem. So they take it all up before, they will grind it all up with the bones ground up, and then you put it in and then you eat it, and there's no problem. You eat it as is. And Marsh is also right. She's also right. That the fish, how much fish, if you buy a fish, you have a whole family to feed, right? How much can the fish go with the whole family? Little piece, right? But and people were poor. They bought what fish? You had 10 people, 10 whatever, eating on the table with one little fish that you got. They weren't all big, fish. But if you mix it, you grind it up, and you mix in carrots, and you mix in flour, and you mix in beets, and whatever else you mix into there, onion, whatever you mix in, yeah. And now all of a sudden it's a fish but it's so yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about birds. Birds are the most interesting, okay? The most complicated. What? I make you hungry. Okay, just quick true or false in the middle of the page. We're going to test our knowledge. True or false? A camel which chooses cud but possesses incompletely split feet is not kosher. True. Okay, a fish must have both fins and scales to be considered kosher. Well, it's kind of a trick question because if it has scales, then you know that it has fins. Yeah, it's a trick question. Sturgeon is a kosher fish because it has fins and scales. False, because the scales are not really scales; they're more like part of the bones, like on the skin. Okay, anyway. Now let's talk about birds. And birds is where it gets complicated. Why is birds complicated? Because the Torah does not exactly give us defining simanim. By animals, it says split hooves, chooses cut. By fish, has fins, has scales, it's kosher. Not easy. So if you meet a new fish one day, you go fishing, and you catch a brand new fish you never caught before, how do you know if it's kosher? You don't need to call the rabbi. See, it has fins and scales. That's it. Okay, it's kosher. If it doesn't, it's not kosher. Nothing to discuss. You got it. With birds, the Torah lists by name 24 species of non-kosher birds. Now, the reason why it does that is because ostensibly there's many more kosher birds than non-kosher birds. So you list the smaller amount. So by saying these are the only 24 non-kosher birds, then by default, any bird that's not one of these 24 non-kosher birds is kosher. However, what's that? So unlike the section on land, animals, and fish and insects, the Torah offers clear criteria for identifying the kosher species. However, the Mishnah gives 4 characteristics of a kosher bird, though. Even though the Torah, I'm on page 12 now. Even though the Torah didn't tell us clearly. And by the way, I don't think I'm going to read so much inside every week, but none of you had a chance to read in advance. So it's fine. The Mishnah gives 4 distinct signs of what makes a bird a kosher bird. Number one, it cannot be a dores. What's a dores? That describes certain predatory or clawing behaviors. Medieval Talmudic commentators debate the specifics of this behavior, but it generally refers to birds that engage in predatory actions. I want to say more about the fish. We'll talk about buying fish in the store in another chapter. It is important to note, though, that not all non-predatory birds are kosher. Okay? So even though a bird is not predatory, it doesn't automatically make it a kosher bird. But if it is predatory, you know right away. If it's a bird of prey, not a kosher bird. Okay. Number two, it possesses an extra toe that faces away from the others. Ornithologists call this a hallux. Though many non-kosher birds have a hallux that does not qualify as an extra toe for halachic purposes. So you have to have this extra toe facing backwards. That's one of the signs of a kosher animal. Number three, it has a crop, which is an expanded muscular pouch near the bird's throat used to store food before digestion. So they don't actually chew their cud, but they have a place where they store food. And number four, its gizzard. If you look at the picture, you'll see exactly where the gizzard is, somewhere inside the stomach, is peeled by hand, meaning as food passes through the bird's digestive system, it first enters the secretory stomach where acids begin to break it down. It then moves to the gizzard, which grinds the food. In many birds, the gizzard also contains small stones that aid in this grinding process. In predatory, and that's typically non-kosher birds that generally eat softer foods like meat and fish, the gizzard is very thin-walled and therefore cannot be peeled, as opposed to birds that eat like seeds and stuff like that, where it's much harder to digest. The gizzard is much stronger, and therefore you can just peel it right off. Okay, those are the four conditions. By the way, it's a little hard to know exactly what these are. So Rabbi Granite, who lives in Coral Springs, would have loved. I didn't ask him. It will spare you. I thought you ate dinner. I've seen him in yeshiva bring a chicken, shech the chicken, and take it apart to show the boys exactly where's the gizzard, where's the this, where's the that, the different parts of what makes an animal kosher, not kosher, the trefa, where it's cut. They do a whole, live, what's the word when you, the section. Doing science class where they dissect the frog. Let's do it with the chicken. By this time we don't need to do it. It's okay. The picture of the book will suffice. And he came and checked to them. Okay. Yeah. When I was in Yeshiva Montreal, we ate the Kaparas chickens the whole year. We're eating the whole community came with the chickens. That's what Yeshiva ate. Okay. In practice, now is where it gets complicated. Even though the rabbis gave us these signs. However, we don't know exactly what are these 24 non-kosher birds, because the names that the Torah gives are not all words that we recognize today. And secondly, even the words that we do recognize, maybe we in English call different birds by a name that was not its original name. So you can have birds that originally, we're called, let's say, we're not an owl. Let's say now we're called an owl, and the Torah says the owl is not kosher. But today we call them, I don't know, double-eyed flying spider. I don't know whatever I'm saying scientists gave a new name. It became like a new species of its own. And so today science doesn't classify this bird as an owl, even though in the Torah, when the Torah said an owl, it meant this species, including this. So therefore today, in order to eat a bird, we need to have an unbroken tradition that this bird is a kosher bird. Remember the word we're going to teach you right now? The word is called Mesorah. What does Mesorah mean? A tradition. A Mesorah is a tradition. And even though the Torah gives us a list of animals, and even though the Mishnah gives us certain signs by which you can tell a kosher bird from a non-kosher bird, we only eat birds that have Mesorah, that have tradition, right?
Chicken and turkey.
Yeah, well, there's more than chicken. You've been to a wedding, they give you a Cornish hen, duck. Okay, so let's talk about a few different animals that do or don't have traditions, and we'll go through them. So first of all, Faith mentioned turkey. It's actually the next page. When did turkey become a kosher food? In America. Well, actually, it didn't become kosher in America. It actually became kosher, became eaten by religious Jews in Europe after people came back from America back to Europe. And they brought with them these wild, massive chickens. Unlike the chickens of Europe that were chickens we have, the turkeys were much bigger. That was, as they started bringing back these American chickens. In Texas, they do everything bigger. So in Europe, they said, oh, America, the golden land, right? America, there they have real chickens, not tiny little chickens. A real chicken is an American chicken. And Jews in Europe began eating these birds. And everyone assumed that the chickens are their kosher. Now, there was no clear Masorah that said that turkeys are kosher. And it actually became a matter of big debate amongst the rabbis if turkeys are kosher. Now, here's the problem. There were already so many people eating turkey that it almost became like turkey is kosher because it became like an accepted norm in the Jewish community. You have things like that somehow no rabbi ever said or gave a ruling it's kosher or it's allowed. But somehow it just became like people just did it and people just assumed that it's fine. And next thing you know, everyone's doing it. So now it's like kind of hard to say it's forbidden when everyone's doing it. So the whole discussion, how could a turkey be considered a kosher animal if it doesn't have a Masorah? Some rabbis gave an explanation that you only need a Masorah when it's a bird that you don't recognize. If you're traveling and all of a sudden you see a new bird you never saw before and you don't know if it's a kosher bird or not a kosher bird, so you have to find out, did my bubby ever eat this? Right? That's when you need a Masorah. However, if you have an animal that's a highly domesticated animal and everyone knows what this animal is and everyone grows this animal and the animals are the domesticated animals growing in people's barns, which is where turkeys are. So in that case, you don't need the Masorah because it's a known animal. That's one explanation. That's what I heard in the book. Another explanation is that turkeys can mate with chickens. And because they can mate with chickens, so there's a rule. They could, I guess. They could mate. I didn't verify that, but that's what I read. And kosher, it says that kosher birds will only mate with only other kosher birds. They'll never mate with a non-kosher bird. And so therefore, the fact that they could live together means that the turkeys also, you're going to check it now. Okay, we're going to fact check that. That being said, there are actually some Jews that don't eat turkey. I eat turkey because I have a Messiah that we eat turkey. Because my Baruch, my father, my grandfather, they all ate turkeys. So I don't have a tradition not to. But there are Jews that have a tradition that there's no tradition to eat turkey. So they don't eat turkey. For example, if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Zirkin, if you know Rabbi Zirkin, who teaches in the girls' high school, my daughter's teacher, the Zirkins, all descendants, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going from memory, I didn't verify this for the class, of the Shalat, of Yitzchak Karowitz. He once saw a turkey attacking or chasing another bird, and he said it's impossible that the turkey is a kosher animal. It's a wild animal. And he made a decree. I don't know, all Jews were eating turkey at that time. He said, I'm making a vow upon my descendants not to eat turkey. And none of his children, grandchildren, they have a tradition that none of them eat turkey. None of them. Yeah.
It says no.
No, they don't. They live together, maybe?
Yeah, they can live together. I had a friend who's Sephardi, and his family doesn't eat turkey because they also I think their money, they didn't have turkey, they had chickens and stuff. They don't have turkey, so his family didn't grow up eating.
Right.
Chicken.
So that's the
Eat turkey also.
so that's the Masorah. That's the tradition that we don't correct. That's the Masorah. That is the tradition. And therefore, there's some Jews that don't eat turkey. Again, that's a much, much higher level of observance because once something becomes accepted within the community, there's a certain level of acceptance that it almost doesn't need to have a Masorah that it's kosher because the Masorah is that everyone eats it, and we all grew up with our parents ate it, so that's fine. Okay. Another interesting bird I want to talk about is a Muscovy duck. You know what a Muscovy duck is? You all know exactly what a Muscovy duck is because you've seen them on the way driving to shul. Past them in the parking lot right outside. Yeah, the ducks that roam the beautiful city of Coral Springs that are literally everywhere. And there's some worker in Domino's that feeds the ducks. He feeds the ducks. It's a very nice guy. Very nice guy. So which is why if you're driving up to our parking lot, there's a very good chance that you saw a duck on your way here, and if you didn't see one on your way here, you'll see one on your way out. If not today, you'll see one tomorrow. Muscovy ducks are everywhere in Coral Springs.
Those ugly ducks.
Yes, you can call them ugly ducks, but that's not their scientific name. They're called Muscovy ducks. That's the Muscovy ducks. Now, are ducks kosher?
Yes, but those are.
They're not. You're right. So not all ducks are automatic kosher. I was reading through 2 pages of halachic sefer today because I knew that there's a discussion about the ducks that grow up here in Coral Springs, if they're kosher or not. And it's not so simple if ducks are considered kosher or not. There's a discussion. In the end, we have a tradition, and I don't want to get too complicated. I didn't even have a chance to read all the footnotes. If the Muscovy duck, if ducks in general, which are called the bar avaz, is considered a kosher animal, the reality is, I'll go find the sefer now again. The reality is that the Beis Yosef says that it's good. Let me find it here a second. The Beis Yosef says that it's good, and I have it in front of me. And even when they, but however, even when the ruler, when the halachic authority says that ducks are good, they're talking only ones that their beaks are black and certain conditions, etc. And therefore, any other duck besides the duck that was discussed in Shulchan Aruch should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis to figure out if it's kosher or not. And therefore, these Muscovy ducks have no Masorah, have no tradition, and therefore there are some rabbis that allow them, but there's quite a few rabbis that say that they should not be eaten, and that is the reason why today we don't eat the Muscovy ducks, because again, if there are many rabbis say that they don't have a tradition, we don't eat them. So even though theoretically we could serve a nice Shabbos dinners, go on the way home, stop at the canal right there, pick yourself 2 nice ducks, they're probably not too hard to catch. They don't run very fast, right? They bite. Okay, so maybe that's Kevin says they bite. Oh, you've been bitten by one. Okay.
When I was younger, there was a duck that laid some eggs in my friend's backyard. We picked up an egg to see what it was, and the mommy duck chased us and it got me and it bit me.
Wow. Okay, so Kevin is saying, and maybe that they are aggressive, and he personally once tried taking eggs and he got bitten by the mama duck.
I keep that egg. I was curious.
Right. He didn't. The mother didn't know if you were curious enough. But the point is,
No, I wasn't. They don't have teeth or anything, so.
they don't have teeth. You weren't bleeding.
No.
Right. So it wasn't like he wasn't bleeding. Yeah. But so they are. They are aggressive. Okay.
Goose, yeah.
Geese are kosher. What? Oh yeah. So in your backyard, we have a geese.
Yeah, what's it called? The goose liver that they make? It's like a delicacy. They
Yeah, geese are kosher. Geese are kosher because it's a domesticated animal. By the way, these Muscovy ducks are not domesticated. They're wild animals, which is why they need to have a tradition that the Masorah is called. But geese are considered domesticated bird and they're kosher. Okay, now let's talk about locusts. A few more minutes. The 4th category of kosher birds, of kosher species, is insects. The Torah states, I'm on page 15 now, a general prohibition against insects and other crawling creatures, such as worms, centipedes, etc. Interestingly, the Torah does provide simanim for kosher locusts. What are the simanim? What are the kosher signs of a kosher locust? There's 4 signs. I think they have 8 feet or 8 legs or whatever. However, the Mishnah says that a locust is only considered kosher if there's a tradition that a previous generation identified it as a chagab, which is the kosher kind of kosher of grasshopper. While some Moroccan and Yemenite Jewish communities can confidently maintain such a Masorah regarding kosher locusts, and in those communities they could eat locusts, lucky them, Ashkenazi generally hold that we lack this Masorah. Shlomo's grandfather is from Morocco, from Yemen. Where's he from?
My grandfather's
Morocco. There you go.
He told me that their tradition is fathers eat them also. They're orange, and he says that they follow the full kosher, and on their back they have it looks like the leather sheen on their back. They have this design on their back that looks like the leather sheen, and they eat them.
Was it yummy? Did he say they were yummy?
They said it's like chips.
Tastes like chips. Crunchy. Mark's are going to throw up.
Do they eat them dead or alive?
No, he told me that he used to see they fry them. They eat them.
And butter. Everything's good in butter.
Randy's here. Everything is good in butter. Exactly.
Was
Well said. Yeah, birds are not meat. Birds are part, except for chicken. But
what's it called?
no,
They actually it's full of protein.
I take that back. Birds are not considered part. Birds are considered
Insects.
yeah. They're insects. There's no flesh in them. They're chips, locust chips.
They're very healthy, actually, full of protein.
Yeah, full of protein. Exactly. That's what. It's a healthy chip. Healthy chips.
There's a big push. We talked about this in a class years ago. And you also told us once that it's like mentioned 5 or 7 times in the Torah.
About bugs.
Not to eat
Yeah. About bugs.
And you can tell that the world's going down a slippery slope when they are pushing us to eat bugs. And there's bugs as food coloring now, and bugs.
That's always been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a thing.
Yeah, which is why candy needs to be kosher, because they put bugs in, they put blood in, they do all different things, of course. Okay, so some Moroccan Jews have a Masorah about eating locusts, which Chagav with the color and the signs on the back, they have the signs, and therefore they're allowed to eat kosher locusts. Go to a Moroccan restaurant, maybe it's on the menu, but Ashkenazim generally hold that we lack the Masorah of what's considered a kosher locust, and therefore most Orthodox Jews do not eat locusts today. Due to this prohibition, we must inspect produce before consumption to ensure it contains no insects. We will revisit this in chapter 16, okay? So we're going to get back to buying fish in the store on chapter 24, and we're going to talk about checking your produce for bugs in chapter 16, and maybe we're going to bring in a bug expert to show us how to wash bugs, and when we're Klein, and we'll bring in an expert, and you'll see you'll be shocked to see what he's finding. Okay. Now, lastly, so we don't eat bugs, but one very interesting thing is honey. Honey comes from a non-kosher insect, from a bee, and bees are not kosher. Nevertheless, the honey of the bee is kosher, which is unique, because normally anything that comes from a non-kosher animal is considered non-kosher. Anything that comes from a kosher animal is considered kosher. So is milk kosher? Well, that's not the right answer. Is milk kosher? I didn't say from a cow. I said milk. Milk. It depends. Very good. Robert's not here. Else Robert. It depends. If it's from a cow, then it's kosher. But if it's from a pig, it's not kosher. If it's from a goat milk, it's kosher. If it's from a donkey or a camel, it's not kosher, right? So it depends where it comes from. Same thing with eggs. Chicken eggs are kosher. Ostrich eggs are not kosher. So the honey of a bee should also be not kosher. And yet, honey is kosher.
And it doesn't need a hechsher, correct?
Well, natural honey that's not pasteurized does not need a hechsher. The problem is if you go to like a farmer's market and like buying like a totally organic, raw honey, doesn't need a hechsher. But if you're going to go to the store, honey there is pasteurized, which means that they cook it. It's going through a cooking process, and then it has to be kosher, because you know what else they're using the pots and all that. So honey is kosher. Why is honey kosher? So some people say that it's exeris hakasa, that it's a decree of the Torah, because the Torah says not to put honey into an offering, the mizbeach, which implies that God's saying only on the offerings you can't put honey, to the incense you can't put honey, but regularly on your tea you could put a honey. Okay, but there's another more scientific explanation or logical explanation given by the rabbis, which is that the honey of the bee is not produced by the bee. It's actually produced by the pollen of the flowers. All the bee does is gather the pollen of the flowers, carry it to the hive, and there, like by itself, the actual fruit or the fruit, the flower, the pollen of the flower is what's fermenting into honey. But it's not a product of the bee. So the milk, the animal ate grass, and now the animal produced from its own body, it produced milk, or produced from its own body eggs. But the honey is not a product of the bee. It's just something being carried in the bee, but it's not actually by the bee, and therefore it would be considered kosher.
I thought also in the Torah said because Halavat Vash, like honey we get from there.
Yeah, but the dvash doesn't mean honey of a bee. The dvash when we talk about the land of Israel, the dvash is the honey, the sap, the juice of dates that is so rich that it'll taste like honey. Yeah, it doesn't actually mean honey of a bee. Okay, let's end with a little bit of Chassidus, and then we're going to do a test. So a little bit of Chassidus. We know that whenever the Torah tells us something, there's its physical dimension, and then there's also a deeper, more spiritual dimension to the same thing. So the Torah tells us the signs of a kosher animal. Torah wants you to know you need both of these signs because they both are not just simanim of what makes a cow kosher or not, they're also simanim for what makes a Jew a kosher kind of Jew. So what does a Jew need to have in order to be a kosher Jew? Number one, he needs to have chuas kad, meaning repetition, doing the same mitzvah over and over. Being a Jew is not only doing things when it's exciting. Being a Jew, you get up every morning and you go and you pray. The next morning, you say the same prayer you said yesterday. And the morning after that, you said the same prayer you said the day before. And the day after that, you said the same prayer you said the day before that. Chewing your cud, literally moving your mouth. Reading the same words. But that's part of being a Jew, chewing your cud. Same time, you need to also have split hooves, which is separation. So that represents, he brings over here one explanation to have both love of God and fear of God, which are two completely different emotions. And also to have a separation of below and above. We have the mundane aspects, we have the physical things we love in the world, and then we have the things that are beyond the physical world. And therefore, even though you need to have a physical world, you need to have a spiritual world to have to separate, to not forget who you are and where you're going, etc. So on one hand, we need to be on the ground, but on the other hand, we need to have split hooves and remind ourselves we're not part of the ground. Understand? Sometimes we need to live in the physical world. We need to build beautiful buildings. We need to have successful careers and live healthy lives. But don't become so obsessed by it that you forget that you're really meant to be an agent of God. So the split hooves reminds you of a separation, and chewing the cud is that continuous self-reflection of remembering who we are. Same thing with fins and scales. What do the fins and scales represent for us? Let's say what? What does it say? Oh, I'm much better than the book. Thank you. You're very sweet, Marshall. That's why we like you. I said it too fast. It's recorded. I can say it again for you if you want after. But I'm just taking the book. I'm elaborating. And by the way, as we get into more detailed technical stuff, there'll be even more additions and elaborations and stuff to add. This is kind of like the beginning is always the most basic, and then you work your way up. But regarding fins and scales, what is a fin for and what is a scale for? Fins help you swim. That's right. The fins are like little flappers, and the scales protect the fish from the element, from the cold water. So to a Jew needs to have both of these things. We need to have scales as protection from the outside environment, and we need to also be constantly moving forward. Now, a Jew is compared to a fish. Why? Because just like fish live in water, a Jew needs to live in our water, which is Torah. And when you learn Torah, you need to have fins. You need to constantly look for new ideas and innovate and use your brain to try and go further in understanding the Torah. But in order to be kosher, you need to have scales. That's the most important. You can never have the fins without the scales. Scales are maintaining the integrity of the Torah, protecting what's there. Some people have such a desire to move forward. Say people are very open-minded. They're so open-minded, their brains fell out a few miles back, but they're open-minded, right? So some people are so eager to innovate new ideas in the Torah that by the time they're done innovating and making up their own theories and theses, they've forgotten that this is not the Torah that God taught on Mount Sinai. It's something else. It may have some similar language in some places, but it's not the same Torah. It's not the same value system. It's not the same belief system. So the first and foremost thing is to have the fins, to have the scales, to have a sense of awareness of who we are, what the Torah is. Then we have fins that move us forward in our desire to get closer to Hashem. And this is true even if you're not a Torah scholar. We need to remember who we are first and foremost to maintain our integrity, to maintain our connection to Hashem. And then afterwards, then to work on growing and conquering the world and growing in our engagement with the world, etc. Okay, anyway, my friends, that is the simanim, the signs of a kosher bird, fish, animal, and the Masorah that we have for kosher birds, what we do eat and what we don't eat. I would like to do chapter 1 assessment. There's pens somewhere. You should do this for yourself. Take a pen. If anyone needs a pen or a pencil, here's a pencil so you can erase it later so no one really made a mistake. Stroking for the knees. Take a minute. Anyone else needs? You want? Somebody have? What are the identifying signs of a kosher land animal? C. We'll wrote C. Should I wait for you guys to do it first? We'll do this on the video. We'll do it. Wait 1 second. So the identifying signs of a kosher land animal are C. That it must have split hooves and chew its cut. Which of the following aquatic creatures is kosher? Catfish, lobster, squid, none of the above. None of the above. On what basis do we determine that a particular bird species is kosher? If it has kosher bird signs, if it has kosher birds on the Mishnah, any non-predatory bird is presumed kosher, only birds of the Masorah. And the answer is number D, only birds of the Masorah, confirming the kosher status may be consumed. And number 4, are there any kosher insect species? Are there any kosher insect species? What do you say, Kevin? What do you say, Dasa? C. And the correct answer is C. That although the Torah describes the kosher signs of locusts, we can only rely on authoritative tradition to verify which locusts are kosher. And since we don't have such a tradition, we do not consume any locusts. Okay. God willing, next Wednesday we will continue this. If you want to go ahead and read chapter 2, go ahead and we'll talk about the slaughtering of the animal, the salting of the animal, how to prepare it to be considered kosher, what defines galat kosher, Chabad shchita, another Chabad, Hasidic, OU shchita. I'm going to talk a lot about the different. When you go to a restaurant, if you go with me to a restaurant, I asked the mashgiach, I want to know what's the shchita. So we'll talk about that, God willing, next week. Okay, Laila told my friends. Any comments? Feel free to reach out to me.
This says practical, the purchase only